Episode 1, The Boy Who Danced with Shadows. The early morning of February 8th, 2009. Los Angeles sleeps under a blanket of lights that never quite go out. Somewhere in that city of broken dreams and shooting stars, a silver Lamborghini pulls up on a side street. Inside, two of the most recognizable voices on the planet have just crossed the point of no return. In a few hours, images will reach every corner of the world. Rihanna's battered face will make the front page. And Christopher Maurice Brown, the boy who at 16 conquered the charts with his smile and his impossible dance moves, will see his empire crumble in a matter of minutes. But this story doesn't begin there. To understand how a prodigy becomes a villain, we must go back 20 years. We must return to a small town where music was the only refuge for a boy who learned to dance to forget the screams. Tappahannock, Virginia, May 5th, 1989. It's a town where everyone knows everyone, where opportunities are scarce and dreams even scarcer. In a modest house, Joyce Hawkins gives birth to her second son. She names him Christopher Maurice Brown. Her older sister, Lytrell, welcomes him tenderly. Clinton Brown, their father, works as a corrections officer at the local jail. Joyce runs a daycare center. The family is working class, but there is love, at least at first. Chris's childhood is spent among the green fields of Virginia, and the soul albums his parents constantly play at home. Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, Stevie Wonder. Those voices fill the house. The boy listens to them and, without realizing it, is absorbing a language he will soon master perfectly. But there's another soundtrack in that house, a much darker one. Chris's parents divorce when he's still young. Joyce begins a new relationship. And that's where the nightmare begins. His mother's new boyfriend is violent. The fights are constant. Chris, from his room, hears the blows, the screams, and his mother's crying. He is a defenseless child, a witness to a violence he doesn't understand but that will mark his life forever. Years later, in a pre-recorded interview with Larry King in 2009, Chris would confess his voice cracking. He grew up watching his mother being assaulted over and over again. He grew up afraid. He grew up angry. And he grew up not knowing how to process those emotions. But he also grew up with music. Chris finds an escape in singing and dancing. At 7 or 8 years old, he's already performing in his church choir. On Sundays, when he goes on stage, something changes in him. He's no longer the scared little boy. He's a different person. He's free. He participates in local talent shows. He imitates Michael Jackson with astonishing accuracy. Adults stare at him in amazement. How can such a small child move like that? How can he have that voice? One day, his mother sees him imitating Usher's My Way. And at that moment, Joyce Hawkins knows her son has a gift. She can't let it go. She has to find a way for the world to hear it. Chris is 13 years old when his life takes a radical turn. A local production team called Hit Mission Records is looking for new talent. They visit Chris's father's gas station. And there, amid the pumps and the smell of gasoline, someone mentions Clinton Brown's son, the boy who sings and dances like his life depends on it. Lamont Fleming of Hit Mission agrees to meet him. Chris sings for him. And Fleming is impressed, not just by the voice. It's the presence, the confidence, the way that skinny teenager transforms when the music starts. Fleming becomes her vocal coach. He helps her put together a demo package. They give her the temporary stage name C-Sizzle. And they start knocking on doors in New York. Joyce and Chris temporarily move to the big city. It's a leap of faith, but it's the only chance they have. In New York, Chris auditions for several record labels, but one executive sees something special in him. Her name is Tina Davis, and she works at Def Jam Recordings as a senior director of A&R. When Chris walks into her office and starts singing, Davis gets a chill. There's something about that guy, something undeniable. He immediately takes him to Antonio L.A. Reid, the legendary president of Island Def Jam Music Group. Reid is impressed. He offers him a contract that same day. But Chris, advised by his mother, rejects the offer. He wants to explore other options. He wants to be sure. 2 months later, during a corporate restructuring, Tina Davis loses her job at Def Jam. It's a crushing blow for her, but Chris seeks her out. He asks her to be his manager. Davis accepts, and together they begin touring the offices of the major record labels: Jive Records, J Records, Warner Brothers. Mark Pitts, a renowned industry executive, watches the demo video Davis prepared. His reaction is clear. I saw great potential. I didn't love all the records, but I loved his voice. I knew he could sing. He knew how to make records. Ultimately, Chris chooses Jive Records. The reason is strategic. Jive has been home to Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. They know how to build young superstars. They know how to reach both African-American audiences and mainstream pop. Chris knows he needs that platform, and Jive offers him exactly that. But there's one condition. Chris wanted to rap and sing on his records. He wanted to be versatile. But Jive executives told him no. It's still not acceptable for an R&B singer to also rap on records, they explained. Chris agreed. For now, he'll just be a singer. Rap can wait. In 2004, at just 15 years old, Chris Brown signed with Jive Records. February 2005, Chris enters a professional studio for the first time to record his debut album. He's nervous, but also excited. He works with some of the best producers in the industry: Scott Storch, Cool and Dre, Sean Garrett, Jazz Fa. They all believe in him. Chris co-writes half of the songs. He writes about what a 16-year-old experiences. He writes about sneaking your girlfriend into your house, about not being able to drive and stealing a car, about everyday problems that any young person can relate to. In less than 8 weeks, the album is finished. 50 songs recorded, 14 selected for the final album. On November 29, 2005, Chris Brown goes on sale. The album's lead single is called Run It. It's a catchy song with hip-hop influences and an irresistible hook. Produced by Scott Storch, the song does something no one expected. Debuts at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Chris Brown becomes the first male artist since Montel Jordan in 1995 to have his debut single reach the top of the charts. He's 16 years old, and he's already a star. The album debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200, selling 154,000 copies in its first week. It would eventually sell over 3 million copies in the United States alone. It was certified triple platinum. The following singles are also hits: Yo, Excuse Me Miss, Gimme That, Say Goodbye. All of them entered the top 20. Chris Brown isn't just a kid from Tappahannock anymore. He's a phenomenon. The media begins to call him the next Michael Jackson. Chris is flattered, but also scared. He adores Michael. He's his greatest inspiration. But he knows that comparison is an impossible burden to bear. In interviews, Chris is shy but charming. He smiles a lot. He speaks adoringly of his mother. He says everything he does is for her. The public adores him. Teenage girls adore him. He's the perfect guy, talented, handsome, humble. But behind that smile, there's a boy who still bears the scars of a broken childhood. A boy who never learned to manage his anger. A boy who is on the verge of becoming an adult under the most brutal pressure imaginable: fame. Chris doesn't just want to be a singer. He wants to be like Michael, a complete entertainer. So he begins to explore acting. In January 2007, she made her big screen debut in Stomp the Yard, a film about college dance competitions. Her role is small but effective. She then appeared in This Christmas, a family drama with Regina King. He also makes television appearances. A small role on The O.C., an episode of My Super Sweet 16 on MTV, where he celebrates his 18th birthday in New York. It's all part of building the Chris Brown brand. The guy who can do it all. Sometime in 2007, Chris meets Robin Rihanna Fenny. She's from Barbados. She's beautiful, talented, and on the rise with hits like Umbrella. They're the same age. They share the same record label. And there's undeniable chemistry. They begin dating in secret. The tabloids speculate, but neither of them confirms it publicly. They're young, they're in love, and they're two of the biggest stars on the planet. From the outside, everything looks perfect, but no one knows what goes on behind closed doors. No one knows that Chris still hasn't healed, that the violence he witnessed as a child is still there, dormant, waiting to emerge. It's the end of 2007. Chris Brown is on top of the world. He's 18 years old, has millions of dollars, a booming career, and a famous girlfriend. He's working on his second album, Exclusive, which promises to be even bigger than his first. But somewhere inside it, there's a time bomb. And in just over a year, that bomb will explode. The question isn't whether it will explode. It's how much damage it will cause when it does. Episode 2, Exclusive: The Coronation. November 6, 2007. Exclusive is released. Chris Brown is no longer a promise. He's a reality. And this album is his declaration of artistic maturity. The album debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, selling 294,000 copies in its first week. It's a huge leap from the debut, and the singles are unstoppable. Kiss Kiss, featuring T-Pain, reaches number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It's his second number 1. Chris is 18 years old and already making history. But It's With You that changes everything. With You is a ballad produced by Stargate, the Norwegian duo known for their work with Neo. The song is simple, direct, and emotional. Chris sings about wanting to be with someone forever, about a pure, innocent love. The song reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It became one of the best-selling singles of all time. Millions of teenagers adopted it as their anthem. It's the perfect song for school dances, first dates, and first loves. And while the world sings With You, Chris is living that love with Rihanna, at least in appearance. Chris embarks on the Exclusive holiday tour, visiting more than 30 cities across the United States. The tour begins in Cincinnati, Ohio, on December 6, 2007, and concludes on February 9, 2008, in Honolulu, Hawaii. Concerts are exhausting. Chris dances like Michael Jackson, sings like Usher, and tries to please everyone. But the body has limits, and so does the mind. He sleeps little. He eats poorly. He's constantly under pressure. Record executives want more. Fans want more. Everyone wants a piece of him. And Chris, who is still a teenager, doesn't know how to say no. In March 2008, Chris collaborated with Jordan Sparks, the American Idol winner, on the song No Air. It's a powerful duet. Their vocal chemistry is undeniable. The song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It became a worldwide hit, cementing Chris as a versatile superstar, able to move between genres and styles with ease. But while the song talks about not being able to breathe without the person he loves, Chris begins to feel like he can't breathe either. Fame is suffocating him. In June 2008, Chris re-released Exclusive as a deluxe edition titled Exclusive, the Forever Edition. It includes 4 new songs, one of which will become one of his biggest hits. Forever is unlike anything Chris has done before. It's Euro disco. It's danceable. It's pure energy. The song reaches number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and becomes an instant classic. Years later, Forever would be immortalized in the film The Proposal, starring Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds, as well as in countless weddings, parties, and viral YouTube videos. Chris Brown isn't just an R&B singer anymore. He's a pop icon. Towards the end of 2008, Billboard magazine named Chris Brown Artist of the Year. He's 19 years old. He's sold millions of records. He's had multiple number 1 hits. He's conquered the world. From the outside, everything is perfect. But inside, Chris is dealing with demons no one sees. The pressure, the expectations, the lack of privacy, and a relationship that, secretly, is starting to turn toxic. Chris and Rihanna have been together for over a year. At first, it was all passion and adventure. But over time, things get complicated. They're both young. They're both under immense pressure. They both have huge egos and careers to manage. Fighting is becoming frequent. So is jealousy. Chris still hasn't processed his childhood trauma. He hasn't gone to therapy. He hasn't learned to manage his anger. And when he argues with Rihanna, that anger comes out. There's no physical violence yet. But there's shouting. There's insults. There's a frightening intensity. And they both know something isn't right. But neither knows how to fix it. At the end of 2008, Chris began working on his 3rd studio album. He wanted to call it Graffiti, and he wanted it to be different. He's inspired by Prince and Michael Jackson. He wants to cross genres. He wants to experiment. He wants to prove he's more than just a teenage R&B singer. He wants to be a complete artist. But fate has other plans. Because in less than 3 months, Chris Brown will make the biggest mistake of his life. And that mistake won't just destroy his relationship with Rihanna. It will destroy his image. It will destroy his career. And it will nearly destroy his life. February 7th, 2009. Chris and Rihanna attend a pre-Grammys party. They're together, but the tension is palpable. They've been fighting more than usual. There are rumors of infidelity. There's mistrust. That night, after the party, they get into the car, and an argument begins. What will happen in the next few hours will change their lives forever, and the world will never look at Chris Brown the same way again. Episode 3, The Fall, the Night That Changed Everything. February 8th, 2009, 12:30 a.m. Pacific Time. A silver Lamborghini is driving through the streets of Los Angeles. Inside, Chris Brown and Rihanna are alone. The argument started at the party. And now, in the privacy of the car, it explodes. According to the police report, which will be made public days later, Rihanna found a text message from another woman on Chris's phone. She confronts him. He denies it. She persists. He gets angry. The verbal argument turns into something much worse. Chris hits Rihanna. Once. Twice. She screams. She tries to get out of the car. He stops her. He puts his hands on her neck. He bites her ear. He keeps hitting her. The details are brutal. The police report describes every blow, every bruise, every wound. Rihanna is left with swollen face, split lips, bite marks, and bruises on her arms. Eventually, the car stops. Rihanna manages to get out. Someone calls the police. And in that moment, Chris Brown's life changes forever. 6:30 in the evening of the same day. Chris Brown voluntarily surrenders at the Wilshire Police Station in Los Angeles. He is booked on suspicion of making criminal threats. Images of his police record are leaked to the media. Chris, wearing a white t-shirt, stares blankly into the camera. He looks like a scared little boy, because in many ways he still is. But the world doesn't see it that way. The world sees a monster. Days later, a photo of Rihanna's battered face leaks online. It's devastating. The swollen eyes, the split lips, the bruises. The image travels around the world in a matter of hours. It's on every newscast, on every front page, in every conversation. And the public reacts with fury. Chris Brown, the perfect boy, the prodigy, the teen idol, is now the villain. The brands that sponsored him, including Doublemint, canceled their contracts. Radio stations stopped playing his music. Fans burn his records. Celebrities publicly condemn him. Chris becomes, overnight, the most hated man in America. For weeks, Chris says nothing publicly. His lawyers advise him to remain silent. But silence only makes things worse. People want answers. They want apologies. They want to know why. They want to understand how the boy who sang With You could have done something so horrible. But Chris doesn't speak. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he doesn't know what to say. Because he himself doesn't understand what happened. He doesn't understand how he got to that point. He doesn't understand why he exploded like that. June 22nd, 2009. Chris Brown pleads guilty to felony assault. He accepts a plea deal that includes 5 years of probation, 1 year of domestic violence counseling, and 6 months of community service. He's also been issued a restraining order. He must stay 50 yards away from Rihanna. At public events, the distance is reduced to 10 yards. Chris accepts everything. He doesn't argue. He doesn't fight. He just wants it to be over. But he knows the legal ruling is the least of it. The public ruling is much worse. And that one has no expiration date. September 2nd, 2009. Chris Brown appears on Larry King Live for his first public interview about the case. He is accompanied by his mother, Joyce Hawkins, and his attorney, Mark Garagos. Larry King doesn't mince words. He asks him directly about that night. Chris responds, his voice cracking, "I'm in shock. Because, first of all, it's not who I am as a person. It's not who I promise I want to be." He talks about growing up watching his mother being beaten by his stepfather. He talks about the fear he felt as a child. He talks about how he never learned to handle anger in a healthy way. It's the first time the public has seen vulnerability in Chris. But for many, it's too late. The damage has already been done. December 8th, 2009, Chris releases Graffiti, the album he was working on before the scandal. The album has an experimental sound, R&B mixed with Eurodisco and rock. Chris wrote all the songs except one. Musically, it's ambitious. It's different. It's risky. But nobody wants to listen to it. The album debuted at number 7 on the Billboard 200, selling only 102,000 copies in its first week. It was a commercial failure compared to her previous albums. The critics are ruthless. They don't just criticize the music. They criticize Chris as a person. Every review mentions the incident with Rihanna. Every interview revolves around that night. Chris tries to promote the album, but it's nearly impossible. Television shows cancel it. Radio stations refuse to play his songs. The world isn't ready to forgive, and Chris begins to sink into a deep depression. As part of his sentence, Chris must complete 6 months of community service. He's assigned to clean up jobs, sweeping streets, collecting trash, and cleaning up graffiti. Cameras capture him wearing an orange vest, broom in hand, sweeping sidewalks. The images go viral. Some see it as poetic justice, others as public humiliation. But for Chris, community service is almost a relief. It's a tangible punishment. It's something he can complete. It's something that has an end. What has no end is hatred. That seems eternal. At the end of 2010, Chris decided to change his strategy. If the world did not hear him on the radio, he'd give them free music. He released 3 mixtapes. In My Zone, Rhythm and Streets, Fan of Fan, a collaboration with Tyga, and In My Zone 2. The mixtapes have a raw, more urban sound. Chris raps more. He collaborates with new producers, especially Kevin McCall. And most importantly, he's honest. He writes about his pain, his anger, his regret. The single Deuces from the mixtape Fan of Fan becomes an unexpected hit. It reaches number 1 on the Hot R&B/hip hop songs chart. The song features remixes by Drake, Kanye West, Andre 3000, Rick Ross, Fabulous, and T.I. It's the first sign that maybe, just maybe, Chris Brown could get a second chance. June 27, 2010, the BET Awards. Chris Brown is scheduled to perform a tribute to Michael Jackson, who died a year earlier. It's his first televised performance since the scandal. Chris takes the stage. He's dressed in white like Michael. He begins to sing Man in the Mirror. The choreography is perfect. His voice is impeccable. But halfway through the song, something inside him breaks. Chris begins to cry. Tears stream down his face as he sings. His voice cracks. He falls to his knees. He continues singing, but he can barely breathe. The audience is silent. Some cry with him. Others are uncomfortable. When he finishes, the audience stands. They give him a standing ovation. It's the first standing ovation he's received in over a year. Backstage, Chris breaks down. Diddy, Trey Songz, and Taraji P. Henson comfort him. Jermaine Jackson, Michael's brother, says, "It was very emotional for me. It was an acceptance from his fans of what happened to him, and also a tribute to my brother." Later, accepting the AOL Fandemonium Award, Chris says, his voice cracking, "I let you all down before, but I won't do it again. I promise." It's a moment of redemption. But the question remains, can it really change? It's the end of 2010. Chris Brown has hit rock bottom, but he's also started to rise again. He's working on a new album, an album that, he says, will be different, an album that will show that he's grown, that he's learned, that he's changed. The album will be called Fame, Forgiving All My Enemies. But the real question is, can Chris forgive himself? And most importantly, will the world be able to forgive him? Episode 4, Fame, The Return of the King. October 2010. Chris releases Yet Trace X, the first official single from Fame, and it's a bold statement. The song is pure dance pop, It's completely different from the dark R&B of graffiti. It's cheerful, danceable, and optimistic. It's as if Chris were saying, "Enough darkness. Let's go back to the light." The song is a massive hit. It enters the top 10 in 11 countries. It reaches number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. And most importantly, people listen to it. People dance to it. People accept Chris Brown again. It's the beginning of one of the most impressive resurrections in the history of pop music. February 2011, Chris releases Look at Me Now, the second single from Fame. The song features Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes. And it's a bomb. The beat is aggressive, pure hip-hop. Lil Wayne opens with his signature flow. Then Chris comes in. And what he does surprises everyone. Chris raps. And he doesn't just rap, he owns the song. His flow is fast, precise, and full of confidence. It's as if he's saying, "Remember what I told you in 2004? I wanted to rap. Jive told me no. But now I can do whatever I want." But the defining moment of the song comes when Busta Rhymes enters. His verse is legendary, 100 words in 24 seconds. It's one of the fastest verses in hip-hop history, and it elevates the song to another level. Look at Me Now reached number 1 on the Hot R&B/hip-hop songs chart, where it remained for 8 consecutive weeks. It also reached number 1 on the Hot Rap Songs chart. The song became the best-selling rap song of 2011 and one of the best-selling singles of all time in the United States. Chris Brown isn't just an R&B guy anymore. He's a legitimate rapper. He's a complete artist. Fame was officially released on March 18, 2011. The album is a statement. Each song explores a different style: R&B, hip-hop, dance pop, electronica. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 270,000 copies in its first week. It was Chris Brown's first number 1 album. At 21, he's finally at the top. Critics are divided. Some applaud the album's versatility. Others say it lacks cohesion. But the public has no doubt. Fame is a hit. The singles keep coming. Beautiful People, featuring Benny Benassi, reaches number 1 on the Hot Dance Club Songs chart. She Ain't You and Next to You, featuring Justin Bieber, also become hits. Chris is back. Against all odds, he's resurrected his career. June 2011, the BET Awards. Chris is nominated in 6 categories and wins 5. Best Male R&B Artist, Viewer's Choice Award, Fandomonium Award, Best Collaboration, Video of the Year for Look at Me Now. When he takes the stage for the 5th time that night, Chris is overwhelmed. He thanks his fans. He thanks his mother. He thanks everyone who believed in him when no one else would. In September, he won 3 more awards at the BET Hip Hop Awards. And in November, Fame won Album of the Year at the Soul Train Music Awards. It's a complete validation. The African American community, which was the most critical after the scandal, has forgiven him. But the most important validation is still missing. February 12, 2012, the 54th Grammy Awards. Chris is nominated in 3 categories: Best R&B Album for Fame, Best Rap Performance, and Best Rap Song for Look at Me Now. He's also scheduled to perform. It will be his first Grammy performance since the scandal of 2009, since that night that occurred just before the ceremony 3 years ago. The pressure is immense. There are protests. Anti-domestic violence activist groups are calling for the Academy to cancel its presentation. They say giving it a platform normalizes violence. But the Academy decides to keep him on the show. Chris takes the stage. He sings a medley of his hits. He dances with his trademark intensity. The Staples Center audience applauds him. But on social media, the reaction is mixed. Some celebrate his return. Others are furious. Then it's time to announce the winner of Best R&B Album. They open the envelope. They read the name. Fame, Chris Brown. Chris walks up on stage, stunned. He takes the Grammy, his first, and holds it as if he can't believe it's real. He gives a brief thanks and walks off the stage. Backstage, he collapses. He cries with relief, with joy, with liberation. He's reached the top. He's officially redeemed. But deep down, Chris knows that redemption is never complete. that there will always be people who won't forgive, that he'll always carry the weight of that February night in 2009. Originally, Chris wanted Fame to be a double album of 25 to 30 songs, but the label objected. Too risky, too long. So Chris decides to do something unusual. 6 months after Fame, he'll release a new album. It'll be called Fortune. It'll be like a sequel. July 3rd, 2012, Fortune is released. The album debuts at number 1 on the Billboard 200. It's her second consecutive number 1. But something isn't right. Critics are merciless. They say the album sounds rushed, directionless, soulless, that it's a transparent attempt to capitalize on the success of Fame. The singles are moderately successful. Turn Up the Music, Sweet Love, Don't Wake Me Up. They're catchy songs, but they're missing something. They lack the passion that Fame had. Chris embarks on the Carpe Diem tour to promote the album. He visits Europe, Africa, Asia, and Trinidad. The concerts are successful, but Chris is exhausted both mentally and physically. It's been working nonstop for 3 years, and it's starting to collapse. June 14th, 2012, New York, a nightclub called WIP in Soho. Chris is there with his entourage. Drake is also there with his. The tension between the two is public. They've both been with Rihanna. The media has fueled a rivalry, and that night, the tension explodes. No one knows exactly who started it, but there's a fight, broken bottles, fists, chaos. 8 people are injured. San Antonio Spurs NBA star Tony Parker suffers a piece of glass in his eye and requires surgery. Drake isn't arrested. Chris's lawyer claims Drake was the instigator. Drake says it was Chris. The media has a field day. Chris tweets about the incident, publicly criticizing Drake. But the damage is done. Just when it seemed Chris had put the violence behind him, he's back in the news for a fight. 2012, Rihanna and Chris are starting to be spotted together again. First, it's rumors. Then it's confirmations. They are trying again. The public is divided. Some support the love. Others are horrified. Anti-domestic violence activist groups are furious. They say Rihanna is sending a terrible message to victims of abuse. But Rihanna doesn't apologize. In interviews, she says she loves Chris, that she thinks he's changed, that they deserve a second chance. For Chris, it's a validation. If the person he hurt can forgive him, maybe there's hope for him. But the relationship is complicated, intense, unstable. And in 2013, it will end again, this time forever. By the end of 2012, Chris is exhausted. He's had 2 number 1 albums. He's won a Grammy. He's sold millions of records. He's filled stadiums all over the world. But he's mentally devastated. He sleeps little. He drinks too much. He uses drugs recreationally. He's surrounded by people, but he feels alone. In interviews, his behavior is erratic. Sometimes he's charming. Other times, he's hostile. Journalists walk on eggshells around him. Chris knows he needs help, but he doesn't know how to ask for it, because admitting weakness is impossible when everyone is expecting you to fail. It's the end of 2012. Chris Brown has achieved the impossible, resurrecting his career after one of the biggest scandals in pop music history. But the demons are still there. The anger is still there. The childhood trauma remains unhealed. And in less than a year, Chris will be in trouble again. He'll be in the headlines again. He'll be arrested again. The question is, how many times can he fall before it's too late? How many times can the public forgive him before giving up completely? And most importantly, when will Chris learn that success doesn't equal healing? Episode 5, The Collapse, When Everything Falls Apart. January 2013, West Hollywood, a recording studio. Chris and his crew arrive for a session. Frank Ocean, the alternative R&B singer, is also there. There's only one parking space available. The argument starts over something ridiculous, a parking space. But it quickly escalates. According to Ocean, Chris threatened him. According to Chris's witnesses, including Sean Kingston, Ocean and his cousin instigated the altercation. The police are investigating. They're classifying the incident as an assault, but Ocean decides not to press charges. He says he'll choose sanity. Chris sues Ocean and his cousin. The case is eventually settled out of court, but the damage, once again, is done. Chris is back in the news for violence. The cycle repeats itself. Chris's probation in the Rihanna case is still active. In July 2013, it was revoked. The reason? Chris was involved in an alleged hit-and-run in Los Angeles. There were no injuries. There were no criminal charges. But technically, it's a violation of his probation. A hearing is scheduled for August to determine whether he will serve prison time. The hit-and-run charges are eventually dropped, but he will be charged with an additional 1,000 hours of community service. Chris is furious. He feels like the justice system is targeting him, that he's being punished for mistakes he didn't even make. But the reality is that he keeps putting himself in situations where the system can punish him. He keeps making bad decisions. October 2013, Washington, D.C. Chris is outside his hotel. A man approaches. He wants a photo with him. Chris refuses. The man insists. Chris gets annoyed. According to the police report, Chris punches the man. He is arrested for felony assault. Chris spends 36 hours in a Washington jail. He's brought to court in shackles. The charge is reduced to a misdemeanor. He's released and ordered to report to his California probation officer within 48 hours. Once again, Chris is in the headlines. Once again, the narrative is the same: violence, legal troubles, lack of control. October 30th, 2013. Chris makes a decision. He voluntarily enters rehab for anger management. The center is in Malibu. The treatment will last 90 days. It's a tacit admission that something isn't right, that you need help, that you can't go on like this. During the 90 days, Chris works with therapists. He talks about his childhood, about the violence he witnessed, about the trauma he never processed, about the anger he never learned to manage. And finally, she receives an official diagnosis: bipolar disorder 2 and post-traumatic stress disorder. It's the first time she's had a name for what she feels, for the extreme highs and lows, for the uncontrollable rage, for the nightmares. The diagnosis is revealing, but it's also terrifying, because it means Chris isn't just bad. It means there's something broken inside him, something that needs to be fixed. March 14th, 2014. Chris is expelled from the rehabilitation center. The reason? He violated internal rules. It's not specified exactly what he did, but the result is immediate. He was sent directly to the Northern Neck Regional Jail in Virginia. He was expected to be released on April 23rd, but at his court date, a judge denied his request for bail. On May 9th, 2014, Chris was sentenced to serve an additional 131 days in jail for violating his probation. With credit for time already served in rehab and jail, he must serve a total of 365 days in custody. But with credit, it will be 131 days. Chris is devastated. He has an album scheduled to come out. He has tours planned. He has a career to rebuild. But instead, he's in a cell. While Chris is incarcerated, his team is working feverishly to keep his career alive. They've been promoting X, his sixth studio album, for over a year. But constant delays due to Chris's legal issues have postponed the release time and again. Originally planned for December 2013, then moved to May 2014. The album is finally released on September 16th, 2014, while Chris is still serving his sentence. X is different. He's more vulnerable, more mature. Chris talks openly about his mistakes, his pain, his desire for redemption. The single Loyal, featuring Lil Wayne and Tyga, became one of her biggest hits, reaching the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and in the UK. New Flame, featuring Usher and Rick Ross, was also a hit. The album has received positive reviews. Critics say it's her best work since Fame, that she's finally showing real growth, that the vocal performances are exceptional. X debuts at number 2 on the Billboard 200, selling 146,000 copies in its first week. It is her first album not to reach number 1 since Graffiti in 2009. But the fact that he's in the top 5 while in jail is remarkable in itself. June 2nd, 2014. Chris is released from prison after serving 18 days. He emerges with a new tattoo on his neck, a cross, a symbol of rebirth, of redemption. In his first interview after his release, Chris says that prison was a blessing in disguise. He needed that time to reflect, to be alone with his thoughts, to understand who he really is. He says he's committed to change, that he's taking medication for his bipolar disorder, that he's in therapy, that he's working on himself. And for a while, he seems sincere. After his second split from Rihanna in 2013, Chris began a relationship with Karrueche Tran, a Vietnamese African-American model. The relationship was on and off between 2011 and 2015. But in March 2015, Chris made a shocking announcement on social media. He has a daughter. Her name is Royalty. She's 9 months old, and her mother is Nia Guzman, a woman Chris had a brief fling with while he was still with Karrueche. Karrueche is devastated. She ends the relationship immediately, and this time it's final. Chris, surprisingly, embraces fatherhood. He posts photos with his daughter constantly. He says Royalty has given him a purpose, a reason to be better, and he seems sincere. It seems like he's finally found something to anchor him. March 20th, 2015. 6 years after that fateful night in February 2009, Chris's parole officially ends. Rihanna's case is finally closed. Chris tweets, "OMG, I'm finally free." It's a moment of monumental relief. For 6 years, he's lived with the shadow of that case hanging over him, with probation officers monitoring his every move, with the constant threat of returning to prison. Now, finally, he is free. But the question remains, is he truly free, or are the demons still haunting him? December 18th, 2015. Chris releases Royalty, his 7th studio album, named after his daughter. The album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, selling 184,000 units in its first week. This is an improvement over X. The album cover shows Chris holding Royalty in his arms. It's a black and white image, intimate, vulnerable, fatherly. In interviews, Chris talks about how fatherhood has changed him, how it's given him perspective, how he wants to be the father he never had. And for the first time in a long time, the audience sees Chris not as a criminal or a star, but as a human being, as a father, as someone trying to make things right. It's the end of 2015. Chris Brown has survived 6 years of public scrutiny, scandals, arrests, and rehabilitation. He's released hit albums. He's won awards. He's rebuilt his career. And now he's a father. But in less than a year, he'll be the target of accusations again. He'll be in the headlines again. Once again, the world will wonder if he's really changed. Because some patterns are hard to break. And some wounds are too deep to fully heal. The question is, how many lives does Chris Brown have? And how many has he used up? Episode 6. Heartbreak on a Full Moon, The Artistic Renaissance. 2016. Chris is in the studio. He's been working nonstop since the release of Royalty. But he's not making a normal album. He's doing something bigger. Something no one has done before. He wants to make an album of 45 songs. His team thinks he's crazy. RCA Records, his record label, thinks it's commercial suicide. No one's going to listen to 45 songs. They tell him it's going to hurt sales. But Chris doesn't give in. He builds a recording studio inside his house to work without restrictions. He records while on tour. He records in hotels. He records on airplanes. He's obsessed. He says he has too many good songs to make a 15-track album, that the narrative he wants to tell requires space, that he needs all 45 songs to express everything he's feeling. Finally, he convinces RCA. They give him the artistic freedom he wants. The album will consist of 45 songs. It's called Heartbreak on a Full Moon, a title that perfectly captures Chris's emotional state. Broken but still enlightened. Wounded but still visible. August 30th, 2016. Early morning. A woman calls 911 from Chris's home in Los Angeles. She accuses Chris of threatening her with a gun. The police arrive. Chris refuses to let them in without a warrant. They return with one. Chris refuses again, and what the media calls a standoff with the Los Angeles Police Department begins. The Robbery-Homicide Division and the SWAT team are on the scene. During the confrontation, Chris posts videos on Instagram. He criticizes the police. He criticizes the media coverage. He claims he's innocent. He says they're defacing his name, his character, his integrity. Eventually, Chris is arrested and released on $250,000 bail. But something is different this time. On September 1st, his attorney, Mark Garagos, announced that nothing corroborating his statement was found during the police search. There is no weapon. There is no evidence. Charges are dropped after prosecutors decline to prosecute Chris. And then the truth comes out. Text messages from the accuser are revealed. In them, she tells a friend, "You don't know this monster Chris Brown. He's kicking me out of his house because I called his friend fake jewelry. I'm going to set him up and call the police and say he tried to shoot me. That'll teach him a lesson." Chris sues the woman for defamation and wins. It's a vindication. But the damage has already been done. Headlines about the SWAT standoff are making headlines around the world. Few media outlets cover the truth when it comes out. Amidst the legal chaos, Chris announces the first single from Heartbreak on a full moon. It's called Grass Ain't Greener. It's a song about regret, about realizing you've let go of someone special and nothing else compares. The song is clearly about Karuji, about how Chris lost her because of his mistakes, about how, no matter how many women there are in his life, none are like her. It's vulnerable, it's honest, it's painful, and the public feels it. The second official single is Party, featuring Usher and Gucci Mane. It's a completely different song. It's upbeat, danceable, and carefree. It's as if Chris were showing the two sides of a breakup. The deep sadness of Grass Ain't Greener and the false joy of Party. The attempt to fill the void with parties, alcohol, and women. The song is a moderate commercial success, but it serves its purpose, keeping Chris's name on the radio while he works on finishing the album. The third single is Privacy, and it's sexually explicit. Chris sings about physical intimacy in graphic detail. It's provocative, it's daring, and it's a hit with his core fan base. The song showcases another aspect of the album, Chris's attempt to use sex as an escape, as a way to forget heartbreak. It's a recurring theme in his music. But in Heartbreak on a Full Moon, it's more exposed than ever. Chris releases a self-film titled Welcome to My Life. It's directed by Andrew Sandler, and it's brutally honest. In the documentary, Chris speaks openly about the incident with Rihanna. He shares details he's never shared publicly. He says he intended to marry her. He says she lost trust in him after discovering he lied about a previous relationship. Describe how the assault happened. Don't make excuses, but do explain. He also talks about his childhood, about the violence he witnessed, about the trauma he never processed, about how it all led to that moment. The documentary is difficult to watch, but it's also revealing. For the first time, Chris isn't hiding. He's fully revealing himself. Scars and all. Numerous celebrities participate. Jennifer Lopez, Mike Tyson, Rita, Ora, Usher, Tyga. They all speak about Chris with empathy and understanding. It's an attempt to humanize him, to remind the world that he's more than his mistakes. Finally, after almost 2 years of work, Heartbreak on a Full Moon is released on October 31st, 2017. 45 songs, 2 albums, a complete narrative about heartbreak, regret, rage, sex, parties, and eventual acceptance. The album is dark and poignant. It showcases all the emotional aspects of what has been on Chris's mind since his breakup with Karuji. Themes include regret, love turning into hate, the difficulty of managing emotions, the impossibility of getting over someone, and how a reckless lifestyle can't numb the pain of heartbreak. Critics are impressed. Many call it Chris's best work to date. They praise the album's variety, ambitious length, and introspective lyrical content. Despite only being in sales for 3 days, the album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. It's her 9th consecutive top 10 album. And a week later, he achieved something historic. A week after its release, Heartbreak on a Full Moon received gold certification from the Recording Industry Association of America for combined sales and album equivalent units of over 500,000 units. Chris becomes the first male R&B artist to go gold in 1 week since Usher's Confessions in 2004. It's a monumental achievement and a validation of his artistic vision. RCA was wrong. The public did want 45 songs. The public was willing to hear the whole story. In 2019, the album will be certified double platinum. June 2018, Chris finally embarks on a U.S. tour to promote the album. Supporting acts include 6 Lack, Her, Rich the Kid, and Jacquees. All are emerging R&B and hip-hop artists who deeply respect Chris. The concerts are spectacular. Chris is in peak physical and vocal form. He dances for 2 hours every night without stopping. He sings live without pre-recorded tracks. He's a complete showman. Journalists covering the tour are impressed. They praise his stage presence and dance skills. Some write that Chris Brown is, without a doubt, the best R&B performer of his generation. The tour grossed over $30 million across 37 shows, with most venues selling out. It's a complete validation, not just as a studio artist, but as a live artist. March 15th, 2018. In the midst of promoting Heartbreak on a Full Moon, Chris appears on a single by comic rapper Lil Dicky. The song is called Freaky Friday and is a comedy about body swapping. In the music video, Lil Dicky wakes up in Chris Brown's body and experiences what it's like to be famous, rich, and talented. The song is lighthearted, fun, and self-aware, and it's going viral. By April 9th, 2018, the video had reached over 100 million views. The song topped the charts in New Zealand and the United Kingdom. It's ironic. Chris just released his most personal and ambitious album, but it's a comedy song with Lil Dicky that gives him his biggest hit in years. But Chris isn't complaining. He knows that exposure is exposure, and anything that keeps his name relevant is welcome. It's the end of 2018. Chris Brown has achieved the impossible once again. He's created a 45-song album that critics love and audiences buy. He's sold out stadiums on a massively successful tour. He's proven that he's still one of the most talented artists of his generation. But he's not satisfied. He never is. He's already thinking about the next album. He's already in the studio. He's already planning his next move. Because Chris Brown doesn't know how to stop. He doesn't know how to rest. Music is his therapy. It's his escape. It's the only thing that gives him meaning. The question is, can he keep this pace up? Or will he eventually burn out? And most importantly, has he finally found peace? Or is he just postponing the inevitable collapse? Episode 7, Indigo, the third act. Chris releases Undecided, the first single from his 9th studio album. It's produced by Scott Storch, the same producer who worked with him on Run It in 2005. It's a full circle. 14 years later, Chris and Scott are back together. The song is catchy, upbeat, and danceable. It's a departure from the dark tone of Heartbreak on a Full Moon. It's as if Chris is saying, I'm over heartbreak. Now I'm ready to fun again. But the single's release comes with an important announcement. Chris has signed a new contract extension with RCA Records. And this time, the deal includes something unprecedented. Chris owns his master recordings. He has complete control over his music. He's one of the youngest artists to achieve this at the age of 29. It's a sign of his power in the industry. Despite all the scandals, Chris Brown remains a valuable asset. He's still selling. He's still relevant. Chris announces that the new album will be called Indigo, and that it will be completely different from Heartbreak on a Full Moon. Where Heartbreak was dark and introspective, Indigo will be joyful and vibrant. It's an album about positive vibes, spiritual love, and celebration. Chris says he's in a different place mentally, that he's grown, that he's no longer trapped in the past. And a list of collaborators back him up. Drake, Nicki Minaj, Justin Bieber, Lil Wayne, Her, Tyga, Tory Lanez, Ghana, Juvenile, Tank, Sage the Gemini, Lil Jon, Joyner Lucas, Juicy J. It's an impressive list, and some collaborations surprise everyone, especially Drake's. Chris and Drake had a public feud that lasted for years. It all started with Rihanna. It escalated with a club fight in 2012, and it was fueled by diss records and social media comments. But on Indigo, they collaborate on a song called No Guidance. It's shocking. No one expected them to make up, but there they are in the same song, complementing each other perfectly. The song was released on June 8, 2019, and was an instant hit. No Guidance debuts at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. It eventually peaks at number 5, becoming Chris's 15th top 10 song. But what's most impressive is its longevity. The song remains on the charts for months, breaking the record for the longest-running number 1 on Billboard's R&B/hip hop airplay chart. And at the 2019 Soul Train Music Awards, she won Best Collaboration Performance, Best Dance Performance, and Song of the Year. It also received a nomination for Best R&B Song at the 62nd Annual Grammy Awards. It's massive validation, and proof that when Chris focuses on the music and puts the drama aside, he's unstoppable. Indigo was officially released on June 28, 2019. It's another double album, Chris's second in this format. The album is an R&B and tropical pop song about vibes, spiritual love, and sex. It leaves behind the introspective, dark, and sensual mood of Heartbreak on a Full Moon for a much more upbeat sound and tone. Critics are positive, praising the album's variety and Chris's vocal range. And commercially, it is a triumph. Indigo debuts at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with 18,000 equivalent album units. It is Chris's third number 1 album. At 30 years old, Chris Brown has sold more than 197 million records worldwide. He is one of the best-selling music artists of all time. August 20th, 2019, Chris begins the Indigo Tour. The name is a play on words. Indigo plus GOAT, greatest of all time. It's a bold statement, but Chris has the credentials to back it up. The tour runs until October 19th. 37 shows. All venues are sold out or nearly sold out. The production is massive. Giant LED screens, complex choreography, costume changes, fire, pyrotechnics. It's a stadium-sized spectacle. Journalists covering the tour write glowing reviews. Many compare him to Michael Jackson. Some say Chris is a better dancer. The tour grossed over $30 million, making it one of the most successful tours by an R&B artist in 2019. And in December 2019, Billboard released its list of the best R&B/hip hop artists of the 2010s. Chris is in third place, behind Drake in first place and Rihanna in second. It's a complete validation of his impact on the decade. Despite all the scandals, despite all the legal issues, Chris Brown was one of the 3 most important R&B/hip hop artists of the 2010s. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, Chris releases a collaborative mixtape with rapper Young Thug. It's called Slime and B. It's a fusion of both their styles, Chris's R&B and Thug's melodic trap. The mixtape includes a single, Go Crazy, and the song becomes a phenomenon. Go Crazy reaches number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming Chris's first song to spend a full year on the chart. In April 2021, he broke another record. It became the longest-running number 1 song on R&B/hip hop airplay, surpassing the record he had set with No Guidance. Chris Brown isn't just having hits. He's breaking his own records. May 1st, 2020. Chris appears on Drake's mixtape Dark Lane demo tapes on the song Not You Too. The song debuts at number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100. And with that, Chris reaches a historic milestone. It is her 100th entry on the Billboard Hot 100. Only 8 artists in history have achieved 100 or more Hot 100 entries, and Chris is one of them. At 31, Chris Brown has more Billboard Hot 100 hits than any other male singer in history. More than Elvis Presley. More than Michael Jackson. More than anyone. It's an astonishing achievement, an irrefutable proof of his consistency and productivity. January 2022. A woman files a civil lawsuit accusing Chris of raping her on a yacht in Miami in December 2020. She intends to sue him for $20 million. Chris vehemently denies the accusations. He sends text messages to the Miami Police Department that prove his innocence. The messages show he had a consensual relationship with the accuser. The woman's lawyer dismissed the case, stating that she was unaware of the messages and the details of the relationship. Chris plans to countersue for defamation, but the media damage has already been done. Headlines about the accusation are everywhere. Few media outlets cover it when the case is dismissed. It's a familiar pattern. Chris is accused. The media exploits the story. Then, when his innocence is proven, almost no one reports it. Chris releases his 10th studio album. It's called Breezy, a reference to his stage nickname. The album debuted strongly. Reviews were positive. Singles like W.E. Warm Embrace and Call Me Every Day, featuring Wizkid, performed well. Chris embarks on the One of Them Ones tour with Lil Baby. The tour is massively successful. 27 stops across North America. Most of the shows are sold out. He also announced a multi-year residency at Dre's After Hours nightclub in Las Vegas. It's a sign that Chris is entering a new phase of his career. He's no longer the young kid chasing hits. He's a veteran establishing his legacy. It's the end of 2022. Chris Brown has released 10 studio albums. He's sold nearly 200 million records worldwide. He has more Billboard Hot 100 hits than any male singer in history. He has more top 40 hits than any R&B singer in history. He has won a Grammy, 18 BET Awards, 4 Billboard Music Awards, 13 Soul Train Music Awards. He survived scandals that would have destroyed most careers. He's gone to jail. He's been canceled. He's been hated. And yet, he's still here, still relevant, still successful, still making music. Many contemporaries call him the king of R&B. Ebro Darden of Hot 97 publicly crowned him. Kelly called him the successor. Tank included him on a fictional Kings of R&B tour poster. But the question remains, can a king have such a dark past? Can art be separated from the artist? Should talent forgive transgressions? These are questions the world is still trying to answer. And meanwhile, Chris Brown continues doing the only thing he knows how to do, making music. Episode 8, The Legacy, Redemption, or Controversy. September 2022. A song by Breezy called Under the Influence begins to gain traction on TikTok. It wasn't released as a single. It had no official promotion. It simply went viral. Hundreds of thousands of TikTok users use it for videos. The choreography becomes a challenge. The song becomes a cultural phenomenon. And in September 2022, Chris Brown made history once again. With the official single release of Under the Influence, he became the first R&B artist in history to have more than 50 top 40 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. 50 top 40 hits. It's a record that will probably never be surpassed. January 2023. Chris surpasses Elvis Presley for the most RIA Gold certified singles among all male vocalists in history. He had already surpassed Elvis for the most Billboard Hot 100 entries. Now, he also surpasses him in gold certifications. It's a monumental moment. Chris Brown, the kid from Tappahannock, Virginia, who witnessed domestic violence and used music as an escape, now has more certified hits than Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. December 9, 2022. Chris announces a European tour for 2023 titled Under the Influence Tour. In a matter of minutes, tickets for the entire 19-show tour sold out. 4 nights at London's O2 Arena, 2 nights at Paris's Accor Arena, 2 nights at Amsterdam's Ziggo Dome. All sold out. Europe loves Chris Brown. In many European countries, the Rihanna scandal doesn't carry the same weight as it does in the United States. There, he's simply an incredibly talented artist. The concerts are spectacular. Chris is in the best shape of his life. At 34, he still dances like he's 20. He still sings live without lip syncing. He still gives his all on stage. The reviews are enthusiastic. The fans are euphoric. And Chris is happy. In Europe, he can just be an artist, not a villain, not a controversy, just a performer. In March 2023, Under the Influence reached the top 10 on Billboard's R&B/hip hop airplay chart. Chris became the 5th artist in Billboard history to have 10 different songs reach the top 10 on that chart. He also earned his 18th number one hit on Billboard's mainstream R&B/hip-hop airplay chart with Under the Influence. He is the artist with the third most number one hits on that chart, behind Drake and Lil Wayne. The records keep piling up, and each one is further proof that, no matter how controversial, Chris Brown is an unstoppable force in music. November 18th, 2022. Chris is scheduled to perform a tribute to Michael Jackson at the American Music Awards in celebration of the 40th anniversary of the album Thriller. Chris has been rehearsing for weeks. He's prepared an elaborate choreography. He's excited. It's a huge honor. But hours before the show, the American Music Awards canceled their presentation. No official reason was given. Chris is devastated. He posts rehearsal footage of the canceled tribute on Instagram and claims the performance was canceled for unknown reasons. The reaction is immediate and furious. Jermaine Dupri declares that if the American Music Awards canceled Chris Brown's performance, that means they canceled the 40th anniversary of Thriller, which means they canceled the Michael Jackson tribute. Black music, we're in trouble. John Branca, co-executive of the Michael Jackson estate, says the AMAs should be ashamed of themselves and that the cancellation is an attack on the celebration of black music. Even many Michael Jackson fans are outraged. They say Chris was the perfect choice to honor Michael, that no one dances like Chris, that canceling the tribute is an insult to both Chris and Michael. But the AMAs didn't reverse their decision, and the tribute never happened. It's a painful reminder that no matter how many records Chris breaks, no matter how talented he is, there will always be closed doors for him. There will always be people who won't forgive. November 11th, 2023. Chris releases his 11th studio album. It's called 1111. The title refers to angel numbers, a spiritual concept about seeing repeating numbers as signs from the universe. The album is introspective, mature, reflective. Chris, now 34, is thinking about his legacy, about his mortality, about the meaning of it all. The album received positive reviews. Fans embraced it, and commercially it performed solidly. But the most important thing comes next. February 2nd, 2025, the 67th Annual Grammy Awards. Chris is nominated in 3 categories: Best R&B Album for 1111 Deluxe, Best African Music Performance for Sensational with Davido and Loyi, and Best R&B Performance for Residuals. 13 years have passed since she won her first Grammy for Fame in 2012. It's been 13 years of ups and downs, scandals, records, and controversy. When the winner of Best R&B Album is announced, Chris is sitting in the audience, trying not to get his hopes up. They open the envelope. They read the name. 1111 Deluxe. Chris Brown. Chris stands up, stunned. He goes up on stage. He takes the Grammy, his second Grammy. In his acceptance speech, it's brief but emotional. He thanks his fans. He thanks his daughter, Royalty. He thanks his family. And he thanks everyone who never stopped believing in him. She didn't win the other 2 categories, but that doesn't matter. She won where it matters most. In the top category of her gender. It's a redemption. 13 years after his first Grammy, after everything he's been through, the Academy has validated him again. Throughout his career, Chris has been one of the most successful touring artists of his generation. He has sold out stadiums around the world and grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. And according to Pollstar, one of the most reliable sources of touring data, Chris Brown is one of the highest-grossing African-American touring artists of all time. He's generated more money touring than almost any other R&B artist in history, surpassed only by legends like Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and Drake. It's a remarkable achievement, because it means that, regardless of controversy, people are willing to pay to see Chris Brown live. They're willing to buy tickets, fill stadiums, and celebrate his music. Chris Brown's career raises one of the most difficult questions in contemporary culture. Can art be separated from the artist? Chris committed a horrific act of domestic violence in 2009. That's undeniable. He's been involved in multiple altercations since then. He's displayed a pattern of problematic behavior. But he's also undeniably talented. He's one of the best singers, dancers, and performers of his generation. He's created music that has brought joy to millions. He's broken records that will likely never be surpassed. Some argue that he should be canceled entirely, that his music shouldn't be played, that he shouldn't be given platforms, that victims of domestic violence deserve to have their abuser not celebrated. Others argue that he's paid his dues, that he's gone to therapy, that he's been diagnosed with mental health conditions, that he deserves a second chance, that his art shouldn't be quashed by his personal failings. There's no easy answer, and there probably never will be. One thing is undeniable. Fatherhood has changed Chris. He has 3 children. Royalty, born in 2014, Aiko, born in 2019, and Lovely, born in 2022. Chris constantly posts photos with his children. He takes them on tour. He includes them in his life. He is, by all accounts, a loving and present father. His children seem to give him a purpose that music alone couldn't. They give him a reason to be better, to control himself, to think before he acts. In interviews, Chris talks about how he wants to be the father he never had, how he wants to break the cycle of violence he witnessed as a child, how he wants his children to grow up without fear. And for now, it seems to be achieving that. It's 2025. Chris Brown is 36 years old. He's been in the music industry for 20 years, 2 full decades. He's sold nearly 200 million records. He's had more Billboard Hot 100 entries than any male singer in history. He's won awards, broken records, and sold out stadiums. But he's also been arrested multiple times. He's been accused of violence. He's been publicly banned. His legacy is complicated. It's not black and white. It's gray, very gray. For some, he's the king of R&B, the heir to Michael Jackson, the most talented artist of his generation. For others, he's an abuser who should never have been forgiven, an example of how the music industry protects powerful men no matter what they do. Both things can be true at the same time. Chris Brown is an extraordinary artist with a terrible past. He's a loving father with anger issues. He's a brilliant performer with unresolved trauma. He's human, deeply flawed, but also deeply talented. And his story isn't over. He's still making music. He's still breaking records. He's still evolving. The question is, how will history remember him? As the child prodigy from Tappahannock who conquered the world? As the monster who beat Rihanna? As the king of R&B who never stopped creating? Maybe the answer is all of the above, because Chris Brown's life isn't a simple story of hero or villain. It's the story of a broken human being trying to find redemption through art, trying to heal wounds that began in childhood, trying to be better than he was. Did he make it? It depends on who you ask. But one thing is certain, Chris Brown's legacy will continue to be debated for decades, because his story raises questions that society is still struggling to answer. Does someone who committed such a horrible act deserve forgiveness? Can talent redeem sin? Should second chances be unlimited? There are no easy answers. There's only music, records, controversy, and a man who keeps going against all odds, dancing in the spotlight, singing about pain and redemption, while the world debates whether he deserves to be there.